Welcome back. Can I ask you just to respond to that? I mean, are we putting one too many eggs in the nuclear basket? How are we going to guarantee that this is going to be an absolutely 150% transparent process?
The issue of transparency should not be a problem. It is
Sorry, you appreciate that people are.
Yes,
I do appreciate.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying. I'm just saying you'll understand where the public's coming from.
No, I understand where the concern is coming from, but certainly this should not be a problem. There will be a procurement process. This has been reiterated by the government. It will follow the existing rules and regulations from South Africa. The issue now is that you have one intergovernmental agreement with one country. We will sign other intergovernmental agreements with other potential vendor countries. So I believe that there will be a stage where the South African population and public is able to know what is on the table. But I think at this stage it would not be prudent to take proprietary information from one vendor and make it public when there will be a competitive process.
No, I understand that. I'm not asking you to do anything that would subvert whatever process you're going to be involved in. All I'm interested in is that, in fact, the process is sufficiently transparent that whatever deal we do is to the optimum advantage of the country, that there are no side deals involved. That's what I think you're suggesting.
Yes.
Let me then ask you this. But are we, in fact, this particular deal with the, this proposal, that we use the Russian technology, just for example, is that going to now be debated in a broader context as to what would be the proper mix? Or are we pretty decided that we're going to find 9,600 megawatts of power through nuclear? Is that settled now?
As a matter of policy, that is settled. That is what the IRP said, that we'll have 9,600 megawatts coming from nuclear.
And what do you say about the argument that you could, in fact, reduce that reliability because of other forms of technology? Why would you want to lock us into 30, 40, 50 years when technology is growing at the extraordinary pace that it is at present?
I think the other factor that we should not forget is that South Africa, we are a country that is very much experienced in nuclear. We have been running the Koeberg nuclear power station for the past 30 years with good...
Off and on, in a way.
Well, we have been running it, and it has been producing electricity very much for the Western Cape province. So we have a good record. And I think it would be irrational for us to move away from a technology in which we have got so much experience. And by the way, next year we will also be celebrating...
But aren't you getting more experience, sorry to interrupt you, in relation to things like renewables?
We are, but I think what the colleagues around the table have also pointed out is some of the uncertainties. Certainly, we support renewables, but there are a lot of uncertainties. There are issues of the intermittency. And let me just say one more point about nuclear. We cannot, as a country, continue to rely a lot on coal. Over the years, we have got to reduce our dependence on coal. So this is the other advantage of nuclear, in the sense that it helps us to reduce our carbon footprint.
How do you respond to the critique that Dr. Serfontein, Mr. Yellard, and indeed all three of your panelists are suggesting the limitations of renewable?
I think that it's very short-sighted to be saying that renewable energy does not have the potential to supply all of our electricity, because it does. And as you say, the technology is improving every day.
But you have to plan now.
You do have to plan now, but renewable energy projects in this country are delivering on time and on budget, as opposed to Eskom's current construction of Medupi and Kusile, which are running over time and over budget, and nuclear projects have a very similar record. So we're heading down that pathway.
Maybe the Russians will be very efficient.
It seems a bit unlikely, but just going back to the policy issue, the updated integrated resource plan actually says specifically that the nuclear issue should be questioned, that we should not be investing in inflexible long-term decisions, which means that we should be investing in flexible renewable energy.
That is a draft that is still being debated. I think there are still so many other stakeholders that are making inputs into that debate. So I think let's just accept.
Yeah, but you've got to accept that that's not been settled, yes?
There is a lot of errors that was in the report of the Integrated Energy Plan and the Integrated Resource Plan. For instance, that the external cost of technologies was not worked in, which is government policy. It should be in. So the subcommittee is sitting. We had about the final meeting today. We're working all of that. So all of that is going to change. So I believe nuclear is going to be big in back in a big way when that comes through. But what I would like to get to, Judge, is if we can forget for a moment whether due process was followed or not, I want to speak about we would follow due process and then end up buying from the Russians, would that be a good idea or not? And in that line, I want to say that Russia is at the moment the most experienced nuclear export country in the world. They've got 21 reactors that they are building internationally, which is very high. They had the big scare with the Chernobyl accident that they had. They suffered from that. They immediately climbed in and they improved their technology. The new technology is fantastic. I'm not saying it's better than France or the others.
Well, we don't know that, do we, until we evaluate that properly?
Well, the
but
past lasts for 60 years. You will only know at the end of 60 years, but you know
60 years is an extraordinary time, given the level of technological development of all forms of energy. That's what's worrying me.
Yeah, so you put new technology in, and you put the technology in that solves your problem. So the problem with nuclear plants...
It's new when you put it in, but not in 60 years later.
No, you put it in and you do the science and you work out whether it will work. We design an airplane, we fly it. We don't say it will work after we've flown it for 20 years. You design it properly from the start. So what we have here is the problem is if you have a nuclear accident where your pumps fail and the cooling water doesn't get through, the fuel overheats and it melts, and that molten fuel becomes like lava and it can burn a hole through the steel pressure vessel, even through the concrete and into the ground. That's your Fukushima type disaster. That's the problem. Now the new technology, they put huge water tanks in the roof. If you've got anything like that, the valves open, it floods the whole thing becomes a swimming pool, the reactor swims in water, it cools down and you don't have that kind of radioactive release.
But let me ask you this question. You wouldn't be able to answer this until we knew, surely, what in fact the rates would be. Because you'd have to work out what it is that the Russians would charge us in order to assess whether that was going to actually deter or encourage economic development.
Yeah.
Do you accept that?
Yeah, I accept that.
And you accept, therefore, it has to be a totally open process so that there can be a proper calculation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. But we see that they are offering other countries good deals.
Fair enough. So let me ask you this. I mean, it seems astonishing that all of a sudden, I mean, why would we want to lock ourselves into a technology that may not well be?
Well, I don't think we should. And I don't think we need nuclear. No, I don't think we need to lock ourselves in a totally inflexible way.
So how would you propose?
I give you an example. Koeberg Power Station was actually planned for 6 reactors, and we built 2. And then there was an oversupply of generation capacity, and then we stopped building. What I'm suggesting, and it's not my suggestion, these comes from the nuclear industry as well, that one builds reactors on a progressive basis. And one gets one operating and gets the cash flow, get it generating revenue to help finance the next one. And you proceed step by step. There's no need to place a contract for 6 units. You can place it progressively, like they were planning to do at Koeberg, and like they stopped when they had an excess capacity. So if one looks at this properly and carefully, one can plan for it flexibly, one can adapt one's growth to meet demand.
Can I just ask you this? If Dr. Serfontein is correct, that the new forms of nuclear are a lot more safe than we've experienced in the past, why would you object to it?
Nuclear is never safe. Unfortunately, no matter what the design is, it is always susceptible to design errors. So as much as the nuclear industry tries to learn from failures, and there have been significant failures.
They're learning too.
They're theoretically learning, but new design errors come in.
Why is it that so many countries are then basically buying this technology?
Well, actually, the nuclear industry is in a bit of a decline at the moment. So the reason you're seeing the kinds of deals that Russia is offering is because new countries are not making orders. And so the finance is prohibitive. And so countries are saying, well, you have to give us everything.
All right, I'm afraid I would like to have a much longer program, and I'm going to get you all back again because I understand there'll be further developments, and this is not a debate that's going to go away. In fact, it's a debate that's just begun. And the only purpose of this debate, to a large degree, is to inform you, the viewer, that this really is an important question. It's an important question for growth. It's an important question for the environment. It's an important question for our economy. And more than that, it's perhaps an important question for the accountability of government to we, the people of South Africa, particularly if we're going to make these considerable investments. How best to do this? What form of energy we should use? You've heard quite a bit of options this evening, and you can judge for yourself. Goodbye.